How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to That Car Vlog channel. If you don't already know, my name is Andy, and today I'm taking us back to the 1990s, the beginning of the 1990s, 92 to be specific, to check out this nice example of a 1992 Cadillac Sedan DeVille. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the folks at West Chevrolet of Alcoa, Tennessee for letting me borrow this 92 DeVille from their used car lot to film this review today. Once you're done watching the video, make sure you check the description below where you'll see a link to their website so you can check out their awesome inventory. All right, back to the Cadillac. It's the only time I'll do that. So let's take a trip back to mid-80s, early 90s General Motors, and more specifically Cadillac, before the word North Star started haunting everyone's dreams. Now, what you're seeing is a 6th generation Cadillac DeVille, produced from 1985 to 1993. We'll talk about what's under the hood here in a minute, but first I want to take us inside and outside of this thing, check out this thing, and see what a luxury car from General Motors was like in the 1980s and 90s. Let's get started. So I'm actually going to start going down the side of the car here, and I want you to check out how long this car is. And this was pretty much a thing with luxury cars back in the day. They were long. That's what you wanted, was a long luxury car. Now, by the time they made it to the 80s, they had shortened these things a little bit, and they figured out the customers wanted their cars to be long. So Cadillac had to add this bit right here, these fins, if you will, with the taillights in them, to add some length to the car. And it is still a pretty long car. I mean, it's not a small vehicle. I mean, just look at the overhang here in front of the front wheels. I mean, this is what you got on a lot of cars back in the day. Right here, you got these really nice looking aluminum or alloy. I can't remember exactly what they are. They must be an alloy. These 15-inch wheels. For 92, I mean, that was a pretty sizable wheel. Automakers were still using 13s and 14s back in the 90s. I had a 1994 Nissan pickup truck that had 14s on it. Look right here on the center cap, it's got the Cadillac logo, the crest and wreath, and it's got Cadillac Motor Division printed all the way around it. That's kind of cool. Down the side, you can see right here, chrome was still a thing back in the day. You had the chrome trim around the windows, these chrome door handles with the push buttons to open them, chrome door lock down here. You got a chrome strip right here on top of this trim. Now, this trim is a little bit damaged. Some of the paint's come off of it, but for the most part, it still looks pretty good. Looks even better on the driver's side. I'll show you that in a second, but chrome trim all the way down, and I do mean all the way down from the front bumper to the rear bumper. Sedan DeVille right here, and this is how you refer to this car. You did not call this the Cadillac DeVille. You did not call this Cadillac DeVille Sedan. You called this the Sedan DeVille. If you're wondering if there was ever a coupe DeVille, yes, there was. Cadillac did build the DeVilles in both sedans and coupes all the way through the end of this 6th generation in 1993. But since the coupes weren't doing as well as the sedans by that point, they did drop the coupe for the 7th generation beginning in 94. Anyways, coming around back, you see the quintessential taillights, these big upright taillights right here in these fins. If you think the rear end of a Cadillac car, this is what you're thinking right here, these tall, narrow taillights. Right here, you got your Cadillac badge right here below the deck lid. The deck lid does not come all the way down because old car. And of course, this was the 80s and 90s. So if you had a feature you wanted to brag about in your car, you put a badge on the car, and Cadillac put a 4.9 port fuel injection V8 on this car, which was a big deal because previous generation cars came with smaller V8s that were carbureted and had problems. Nice chrome bumper running all the way across, and as you can see, the taillight continues all the way down into the chrome bumper. That's a tall taillight. Right here in the center, of course, is where your plate goes, and it's flanked by your reverse lights. This was a common place General Motors liked to put their reverse lights back in the day, right there in the middle on either side of the license plate. Over here on the driver's side, it does look a little bit better than the passenger side. The trim isn't quite as messed up, but I'm not trying to sell this car. I'm trying to show it to you guys, so it doesn't really matter that much. But look at chrome strip that runs all the way down. You got the chrome on the wheel arches. I mean, chrome all over the place on cars back then. See, your rear window is almost completely upright. It is not perfectly upright. You know, not like a lot of older cars. I mean, just it was a 90-degree angle. They started to angle them a little bit back in this time. As we make our way back up front, I want to zoom in here on the fenders and look at this piece right here. If you've never seen this before, and if you're of a younger generation not familiar with these cars, you probably haven't seen one of these before. These are actually 3 little indicator lights, and from what I've heard, they are actually fiber optic, which is kind of cool. You don't have to worry about them burning out. But these are little indicator lights. They're going to tell you when your turn signals, your headlights, and your brights are working. Let me see if I can demonstrate those. Now, they do still work because of how they're made, but they can be kind of hard to see. So this first one you should see flashing, maybe. That's going to be the one indicating your turn signal. Next one's your headlights. And this one down here at the very bottom is actually your high beams. They're probably hard to see, but that's what those are there for. Obviously more useful at night when you're going to be using your headlights, but those are really cool. So if you have a bulb burnout, you're going to know it when you don't see these lighting up. Now looking at the front right here, you got a big chrome bumper again with these upright pieces right here. This was another, you know, common thing back in the day on pretty much almost all vehicles, cars and trucks included. I cannot for the life of me remember what these things are called, but many of your old cars had these things on the bumpers, especially your luxury cars. And of course, part of them are paint matched to the bodywork. Big chrome grille right here, big chrome strip run all the way across the top of the bumper, which is kind of cool. And this is a big bumper. This is it's wider than my hand. That's a big bumper, but that's what you had back in the day. You didn't have the nice molded with the bodywork bumpers. They stuck out from the front and the rear. A bumper was a bumper, not just a cover. And yes, there are impact bars behind the bumper covers on modern cars, but your bumpers were really pronounced back in the day. Now, if you look at the taillights and turn signals, these are kind of neat. I mean, okay, they're nothing that special, but they're still kind of neat. So starting there in the bumper, you got your turn signals. I'll hit these 4 ways here. You can see the signals actually light up down there in the bumper. And that was another common thing on old cars. Your signals were down low in the bumper. Then you've got your headlights above that, and they are dual headlights. So turn this on, and here's your low beam headlights. You can see they're on the outside. Please excuse the chime in here with me. Now, a lot of your modern cars, when you turn on your brights, all 4 lights stay on, but on these old cars, it actually switches over to the bright lights in the center. It turns off the lows, turns the highs back on. You want to switch back to your lows, click it again, and it switches back over to the lows. You don't have all 4 bulbs glowing at the same time. And of course, right here on the hood is another hallmark of old luxury cars. Now, this one is in a little bit rough shape. This, of course, is your hood ornament. You got the Cadillac crest with the wreath around it. Like I said, this one is in kind of rough shape. It looks like somebody broke it at some point. But I mean, this was the thing. Buick, Mercedes, Lincoln, all the luxury sedans had these hood ornaments right here. And it's really cool to drive down the road and have this thing poking out above the hood as you're driving down the road. And if you're new to driving, this thing makes a pretty good centering device. My dad actually taught me that when we had an '89 Dodge Caravan that also had one of these. And for the last thing I want to show you up front, I've turned the turn signal back on here on the driver's side. And if we move over here to the side of the car, you can see there's a white light shining right here. This, of course, is a cornering light. A lot of your luxury cars had cornering lights back in the day. That was really cool. So if it's nighttime, you're making a turn, you can see off to the side. Some modern cars have that, but it was a lot more common on luxury cars back in the day. All right, now we've walked around the entire outside of this car, and I'm sure there's one thing you probably didn't see if you weren't paying attention or you didn't know what to look for, and that is the radio antenna. Now, on modern cars, that's actually pretty common. We're starting to get away from, you know, metal antennas sticking up from the fenders. Some trucks still have it, and maybe even some cheap cars, but most of your modern cars are gonna have a little shark fin on the roof or something like that, but not back in the 80s and 90s. Your radio antenna on this car is actually located right here, and you can see it's flush with the bodywork. Not quite flush, but it's way down low. That's because check out what happens when you get in the car and turn the radio on. You see that antenna just rises right up out of the fender, rises to the occasion to give you a radio signal. But then when you go and turn the stereo off, that antenna will go right back down and hide away to preserve the look of the car and, I don't know, maybe some aerodynamics or who knows. But that was a very common thing that they did back in the day, was hiding the antenna in the fenders, and it would only come up when you turn the radio on. Now, a lot of these things break. If I'm not mistaken, the one on our 87 Buick that we had when I was a kid did break, and it was permanently up. So to see that this thing's still working is awesome. I don't know if the motor's been replaced or if it just never broke, but that's a really cool piece to see still working. All right, let's go jump on in the interior and take a look inside now. And let me just grab the key fob. Oh, wait, this is 1992. All right, kids. So if you're not familiar, this is how we did things back in the 90s, and this is how General Motors did things on pretty much all their models, luxury or not. You got 2 keys, and usually your square key was for your ignition switch and your round key opened the doors. So we're gonna take this round key and we're gonna stick it in and we're gonna turn it forward to unlock the driver door. But I'm not gonna release it, I'm gonna hold it, because there's the driver door and there's the rest of the doors. Cadillac was really cool like this. You stuck the key in the driver door, turned it and hold it, and it would unlock all the doors. Of course, this thing has power locks, but being a 92 Cadillac, you still had to use the key from the outside. Love these door handles. This is how we did things back in the day. I mean, from the 90s and even before that. Push the button, pull the door open. I mean, it's kind of classy. And as we open the door, you got this red light glowing right here on the end of the armrest. This was a thing that a lot of cars, once again, especially your luxury cars, had back in the 90s and before. They had this red light. Sometimes it might have been white. Sometimes it might have been white and red. It depended on the car you got. But you had this red light here on the end of the door. And I'm going to open the back door. You can see you've got the same red light right here, which this is really cool. So if you're parked on a curb at night or on the side of the street and you open your door, you got a little light right here that comes on every time the door opens, regardless of day or night, headlights or no, to let people know that their door is open so they hopefully won't run into it. All right, starting the inside tour now, and look here at the door panel. Now, once again, it's a 92. It's been used. It's got some miles on it. So everything isn't perfect, okay? So please keep that in mind. It's a nice example, but it's not the nicest example. First off, look at here on your door card. This is your door pull right here for closing the door. Look how it lifts up and you pull on it like that. That's really, I always thought this was cool. I'm pretty sure we had this on our Buick when I was a kid, and I'm pretty sure I got in trouble for playing with this thing a lot because, you know, kid, right? You did have power locks in these things, and look at the size of this lock switch right here. Here's your lock, unlock. Just a big switch right there next to your manual lock for locking and unlocking the door. You get some wood trim in here. It's pretty nice. I'm going to guess this is probably leather if it's not real leather, but it should be because it's luxury from the 90s. Nice, mostly soft armrest right here with all your power controls in it. Look, you got your seat controls right here, and every one of these seat controls still works. Full power seat controls. Here's your controls for your 4 power windows. And I love this. Let's get it in here right here. You want to push your window down? Push on the dimple that goes down. You want to put your window up? Push on the dimple that points upwards. Down for down, up for up. That's really cool. I'm sure that was for feeling it in the dark because switches weren't backlit at this time, but it's still kind of a neat touch. And yes, here's your power mirror joystick, and the power mirrors do still work on this car. On the bottom of your door panel, you have carpet, and fluffy carpet at that. Yes, this is the days when we were still putting carpet on the door cards. And here's a little bit different texture right here. I do believe this is where your door speaker is going to be, I think. Anyways, carpet on the interior door cards. That is definitely old school. Check out the steering wheel right here. This is the most basic steering wheel you'll ever see, a nice thin-rimmed steering wheel, and the only thing on it is a horn. It does have an airbag though, but this was the days when you only got a driver's airbag. Let's see what that horn sounds like. That horn means business, man. That's great. That was quite entertaining. Looking at the dashboard right here, I don't know what this is. I guess somebody put an iPod dock or something on here with the last owner and the dealers just left it there. Whatever. Definitely not from 1992. Definitely did not come with this car. And you got some controls right here. Now here you got the Twilight Sentinel. Now if you don't know what this is a General Motors thing from back in the day, and I believe they kept on doing it well into the 2000s and maybe beyond. This is how you're going to tell it how long to leave the headlights on after you've turned the car off and locked it. And you can adjust that delay from don't wait very long to wait quite a while. Pretty cool touch. That way, you know, if you park in front of the house, you want to light up the front of the house to get in before the car turns the lights off. That's pretty cool. Kind of neat. I love the rotating dial switch for that. Definitely old school. And of course, you got your pull switch for your headlights. Nothing special there. Every vehicle from the time pretty much had that. All right, in order to show y'all more here on the dash, we're going to take the square key. And yes, this is the early days of having a chip in the key blade. This was your very early form of an immobilizer system pretty much, or a security system. Without that chip, you're not starting the car. So it may be 92, but there is a little bit of technology in this thing. Let's go ahead and fire this thing up. See if I can get some AC going in here. Now we're going to stay low on the dash. Well, this right here is your fuel gauge. This whole area right here is your fuel gauge. So right here, this display on the right is always going to tell you how many gallons you've got left in the tank. But this display over here is going to show you several different things. Right now, we're actually on fuel range, so it's saying we should have 52 miles until the tank is empty. You can also get fuel used, so 6 gallons used. I'm assuming maybe that's from last fill up, and you use the reset to set that every time you fill the car up. I'm not entirely sure on that one. Then you've got fuel economy. You've got 2 options right here. Instant fuel economy. Going to tell you real time kind of MPGs you're getting right now. Obviously 0 because we're not moving. Then click average right here, and here's your average 13.5 MPG. Now I have heard that these cars with that 4.9 V8 can get up to the low to mid 20s per gallon, 23 or so. I'm assuming that's highway driving. I don't see the engine getting very good through town, and that 13.4 definitely reflects that as an average. But that's really cool. That's your gas gauge. So if you get in one of these and you're like, where is my gas gauge? All of this is your gas gauge. And then on the passenger side of the steering wheel, here is your climate control center. Now, I think I heard somewhere that this has a separate function other than climate control, although I don't remember what that is. But this is your climate control. And notice it's all buttons. So yes, even in 92, there were cars that were operated by buttons instead of levers. And look at this, you got, click on this right here. It's going to show you what's your outside temp, 66 degrees. Click it again, it's going to take that away. So you can have the car tell you, hey, what's the temperature outside? Okay, 66. Then you got these buttons right here, the blue one that says cooler and the red one that says warmer. This is how you're going to change the temperature. So you start at 60, jump to 65, and then go up 1 degree at a time from there. Of course, push your blue button to go back down. Of course, here's your off button, economy mode, auto air conditioning in the early 90s, kind of cool. Here's your defrosters and your fan speed control. You got high and you got low. That's it. And then up here is the rest of your digital gauge cluster. Starting on the left, you got your overall odometer right here, shows the overall mileage on the car. This one's sitting at 124,000 miles, which for 92 is not too bad for pretty much any car. Of course, right here in the center is your speedometer, and over here on the right is your trip odometer. And yeah, you only get one trip, not an A or a B, and I did just reset it to 0. Now, this was not the only speedometer that there was. Some of these had the big, wide analog speedometer that ran the whole width of the cluster. I know our 87 Buick had the same thing. It started over here, and I mean, it went to the max speed all the way over here. Now, these speedometers had the 55 mile an hour highlighted on them because at the time, you know, way back in the day, there was a national speed limit of 55 miles an hour. And so the automakers had to highlight that on the gauge clusters to say, hey, this is the speed limit, guys. And they also had to add a max speed of 85, which was interesting. We definitely come a long way. Otherwise, coming across the dashboard, here's what you get. You got 2 levels right here. This level here contains, of course, your speedometer information, and it's got your climate vents. You got 4 vents in total, and you can turn these vents off with just the flick of a switch to close them or open them back up. Kind of cool right there. And yes, this is a 92, and the AC does still work. Dropping down there to the lower level of the dash, I actually want to finish up here in the driver area. The last switch over here is your window lock. And yes, this is exactly what you think it is. Instead of having a switch over here on the driver's door with the window switches, you've got this right here. So if you flick this switch, you can no longer operate windows that aren't the driver's window, unless you switch it off again, and then you can. Now I want to look back over here and show you guys where all the warning lights for this car are. So I'm going to turn the key on, and here you got, on both sides of the speedometer, you got warning lights over here, over there, and you got some more information lights right down here. Check it out. Boom, surface air conditioner is testing the lights, trunk is open, that one's not going to go off. And you got a few more right here. That top one indicates when your cruise control is on, and of course that bottom one's your security light. And then right here on the steering column, here's your turn signal stock. You got a solid click every time you activate this thing. Little button right here rotates around for your windshield washer. This part right here, you rotate the whole thing. That'll turn on and off your windshield wipers. And the end right here is for your cruise control. So here's in your off position, on. This is your accelerator function, or if you have to hit the brake, just hit it to resume. And your set button is actually right here on the end. When you're ready to use cruise, just turn it on, get up to speed, push that end button, and that's how it sets. Behind that, your steering wheel tilt lever right here. And over here is the switch for your hazard lights. Now, this is another thing GM liked to do in the past. You push on this center section, and here you can see they're flashing. To turn them off, just pull on this outer section, and they're off. And yes, it is going to sound every time like it's braking, although it's not. Now right here obviously is an aftermarket Alpine radio. You know, it's a 92. They were bound to switch it up by then. Cassette players were a big thing at the time. I do believe that even at this early time, you could get a CD player. Now this obviously is an aftermarket with CD player. I'm not going to be able to show you the old school radio. And over here is your glove box, locking glove box with DeVille there on that badge. Open that up. Not a lot to see in here, except for right here, you got 2 buttons. This one to pop your fuel door, and this one to pop open your trunk. You do get 2 laughable cup holders or whatever. And then down here on the bottom of the dashboard, pull out here and you get your ashtray. 2 ashtrays with 1 cigarette lighter in the center, because this was the early 90s and people still needed their cars to be equipped for smoking. Now look here at these seats. These are comfortable seats. This is in the day where you got these big plush stuffed sofa cushion seats. I mean, these things are soft and comfortable even now, 32 years later. Now, this is a split bench. It's a 60-40, 60 on the driver's side. You could seat 3 people across in this thing, although it is kind of narrow right here. Or you pull down right here, you get an armrest, And you get the early form of a center console. And look at this. You've got cassette tape storage right here. You've got CD storage right there. Coin slots and cup holders. If I can remember how to do this. Boom. Cup holders. Close that back down. They're okay. They're not the best thing in the world, but they're there. So you can have your cup holders, and when you're done with that, you don't want those ugly things sticking out, so just put them away. Looking up here, this is of course 30 years before the invention of the digital rear view mirror camera, so you do just have a standard mirror, but it is auto dimming in 1992. Here's that switch for turning off the auto dimming as well as adjusting the sensitivity. You get 2 sensitivity settings right there. Here in the center, you got your interior dome lights. That's all there is right here. This pod just houses those lights. And you get your flip down visors. Open up the mirror cover, you get your lights, and they are dimmable. This little switch right here will dim and brighten the lights in your vanity mirrors. That's kind of neat. Another neat feature of these visors right here, pull them both down, you can see this little black slider right here. Pull these down, slide that out on both sides, and now you're blocking the sun that comes in above the rear view mirror. Not all cars in the day had this, but the ones that did definitely appreciated that. I wish that automakers still did that. I'm sure some do, but you know they all don't. Or at least put something to fold down right here, because the sun comes in right here. These are useless. And while we're up front, remember me saying back there at the back trunk of the car, how back in the day, if there was a new feature on cars that we wanted to tell everybody we had to make sure to print it on the car? Check this out. Your brake pedal says anti-lock brake system on the pedal itself. Anti-lock brakes or ABS were still kind of in their infancy at the time. So if you had a car that had ABS, you had something like that. I remember Pontiacs from the 90s had ABS badges on the outside of the car because big new safety features like that had to be advertised to everyone that saw you driving around in your car. All right, now let's open the back doors now. Now your back door cars are just like the front. You got the pull handle right here that flips up, the fidget toy for children. You got your lock button and stuff right here, power window controls, and then right here in front of the controls, you've got an ashtray, because of course you do. And it has its own separate cigarette lighter right here in this area, because even people in the back of your luxury car were going to be wanting to smoke. And yes, you do get one on both doors in the back of the car. Now, I did already show you the red light on this door panel, which is a neat touch, but if we come down here, you've also got this white light that shines down on the ground. And I do believe, let's see if I'm right, that you also get that on the front doors as well. Yes, you get a white light that shines on the ground, which is really cool. It's going to illuminate the ground next to the car as you're trying to get in and out of it at night. Sitting down inside of the back of the DeVille, you get these big, deep storage pockets on the back of the seats. And yes, they are padded, because of course they are. You get those on both seats. I mean, you can stick a lot of stuff in here. Think back in the day when you're taking a long road trip with the parents. They didn't have GPS back in the 90s. You had maps or a big road atlas, this massive book of maps. This is where they'd shove that. Looking here in the center on the back of the console slash armrest slash seat, you do have a couple of small vents right here. Nothing special. Decide if you want a little bit of air or maybe no air. Aim them wherever you want. Obviously, this is before dual zone climate control and way before 3-zone climate control. You just had one switch that blew air to the whole cabin at one temperature. Nothing special to see up here on the ceilings. You get these nice grab handles, the OS handles. Some nice chrome coat hooks right here. And then right here next to your head, you've got these lights, one on each side with the Cadillac logo on them. These, of course, light up when the interior lights are on. A lot of luxury cars have these right here. These are really cool. Looking at the back of the seats, once again, you still get these big, plush, cushy, sofa-like seats right here. You get this, what I'm guessing is supposed to be one big, long headrest with the seat belts that are kind of come out of the ends of it. That's kind of interesting, but okay, cool. And then right here on the parcel shelf, you've got a small little storage bin. It's kind of neat. So I want to focus your attention now on this little pod above the rear window. Now, this is another cool little indicator in this car. So you got this little pod and it's got these 2 dots in it. But I'm going to press on the brake pedal and you're going to see those 2 dots are going to light up in red. That's kind of cool. Let me activate the 4-ways. And you can see now they're flashing with the turn signals. So this was a really cool touch that they did in some of these cars back in the day. These were indicators to tell you when your brake lights and turn signal lights were working. And the driver could just glance in the rearview mirror and see these things while driving the car. All right, let me jump in the back of this thing now. And you get a pretty good amount of room in the back of these cars. Now, yes, your modern full-size trucks actually come with even more room than this, but this was a pretty good amount of space for the 90s, man. Lots of great room back here, and this seat back here is just as comfortable to sit on as the one up front. You get this long bench back here, so you sit your kids back here with all their stuff for the road trip and let them have at it. Or maybe if you and your other half are back here being driven around, you got a bench seat so you can cuddle. Pull down right here, you do get an armrest, which is really low, actually. I guess kids might appreciate it, but for an adult, this is kind of low. But once again, old car, so, you know, things hadn't quite come up to the standards that we have now. No cup holders, however. You didn't get those in the back seat. Even on the Cadillac, you did not get rear cup holders. I mean, you were good to get front cup holders in cars. I remember my dad had to buy a thing to put on the hump in the center of the floor for the front so he could have cup holders and a place to put his cassettes and CDs. You just didn't have stuff like that back in the day. You do still have a hump right here in the middle of the floor. Now, this is a front-wheel drive car, so there's no drive shaft right here, but they did have to run the exhaust. So you still have this hump right here. So if you are sitting in the middle, just remember, you gotta straddle the hump. And before we leave the back seat, we gotta check out the seatbelt situation back here. Now, in your modern cars, you're used to a plastic thing with a red button on top to release your seatbelts. Not here. Check these out. These things are metal. These are metal seatbelt fasteners, and you plug a full metal seatbelt end into that thing right there. And just listen to that solid, satisfying click. I mean, that is nice. Want to release it? Push right here on the side on the Cadillac logo, and it comes right out. Now, you're also used to, in modern cars, 3-point seat belts for every single seat. Now, you've got that for your side seats right here, for your outboard seats, but for your center seats, you get this thing. All you get for your center seat is a lap belt. No shoulder belt, no 3-point belts for your center seats. All right, now it's time to get into the trunk. Now, there's two ways to get in this trunk. The first one I showed you was in the glove box. You push that button, there is a power release. The other way is with your round key. Now, if you've never been around a luxury car from this period, you're gonna be wondering where in the world the lock is for the trunk. Check this out. Take your Cadillac badge right here and rotate it. And there is where your keyhole is gonna be. And you notice there's this little raised piece right here on the key lock that actually holds that badge in place. If you want to put the badge back, just give it a gentle tug and it'll flip right back into place. Anyways, flip that out and let's stick the key in, turn it to the right, and open up our trunk. And it opens into an absolutely just cavernous trunk. How cavernous? Hang on, I'll show you. Is that cavernous enough for you? I am a fat guy who is a little over 6 feet tall, and I can lay in the back of this thing actually relatively comfortably, actually. I mean, yeah, it's still tight, but this is a huge trunk. There's not many modern cars that I can do this on. But anyways, like I was saying, you got a big, massive trunk on this thing. You can get a lot of stuff in here, or even one fat, tall American. Pick up on the carpet here, you do have right here is your spare tire. Now, sadly, we had already switched to the compact spares, but at least you get one in the car. You do have to get up underneath the trunk lining for it. Otherwise, there's nothing else to see in here. That's it. There's nothing here but space. Now, when you're ready to close this thing, slam it. Oh, no, 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 no. Don't slam it. Take it and touch. Soft closed trunk in 1992. That is the stuff right there. All right, now it's time to get up under the hood and talk about the powertrain, but first I want to show you how you open the hood on this car. So it starts out normal. You got to pull right here in the driver's footwell. Nothing strange about that. You're going to come out here, and of course, the hood's not going to come all the way up because you do have a secondary latch. But it's not where you think it's going to be. Is it here in the middle? No. Maybe over here, stick your hand through the grill? No. Stick your hand right here above the passenger side high beam, push towards the center, and up goes your hood. You can see they put the release over here on the passenger side of the car. Kind of strange and not what a lot of people are used to, so if you ever find yourself trying to get up underneath the hood of an old Cadillac DeVille, go to the passenger side of the hood. Now, before I go into too much detail under the hood of the car, and yes, I'm holding it up with my hand just as a precaution, I want to talk to you a little bit about how the powertrain progressed in this generation. Now, like I said, this 6th generation DeVille started in 1985, and at that point, your engine options were a 4.1 liter V8 transverse mounted for front wheel drive, that put out 130 horsepower. So not a lot at all. Now I've been trying to find whether or not those engines were carbureted. Being 85, it's a strong possibility, but still, they did not make a lot of power. The other engine option you had in 85 was Oldsmobile's 4.3 liter V6 diesel engine. It was an option for 85, but that was the only year in this generation that they offered that engine. They dropped that thing. Now, I did watch a couple of videos talking about these cars, and so I'm going to try to pull from memory. Those 4.1 engines did have issues, especially involving the head gaskets, because they were aluminum block engines with cast iron cylinder heads. Do the math. I'm not going to go into too much detail about how they progressed, but by this point, by the 1990s, Cadillac had this, the 4.9 liter port injected V8. This engine produces 200 horsepower, 275 pound-feet of torque. 200 horsepower in 2024 is not a large number. In fact, almost everything makes more than that. You got four-cylinder cars that make less, obviously, but my wife and I have a 2019 Toyota Highlander with a 3.5 liter V6 that pushes pretty close to 300 horsepower. So obviously that Highlander is going to outrun this car any day. But this was the 1990s, and before that, you know, fuel emission standards were already getting more and more strict. You know, they had to start figuring out ways to save fuel, pollute less, that kind of thing. And the automakers really hadn't figured out how to continue making a lot of power and keep those government mandated systems on their engines. So your big engines didn't get a lot of power. Now 200 horsepower isn't weak, but this thing is not fast. Now we'll take a bit closer look at the engine here. Once again, this is your 4.9 liter fuel injected V8. First, right there, you got your distributor with your 8 plug wires coming out of it. And actually, I gotta say, this thing looks pretty good under here for a 92. Yeah, there's a little bit of chipping here, stuff like that, but it still looks pretty good. And an interesting thing that GM did back in the day was they gave you this sticker right here, which color-coded all of your different fluids under the hood. So you can see right here, yellow indicates engine oil, red indicates transmission fluid, orange indicates power steering fluid, which is cool. So even though a lot of these caps said what goes in them, power steering, coolant, washer fluid, if you didn't want to mess with reading, you could match the colors to tell you where to put fluids in these cars. The days where you can still check transmission fluid in a car. All right, let's see how hard this hood closes when I go to drop it. Hard and solid. Speaking of things that close solidly, I don't think I covered the doors. I mean, there's a little bit of rattle in there, but still, you don't get that from doors now. That's a pretty satisfying door close. I mean, it's not quite as satisfying as, say, on a Mercedes G-Wagon, but that's not what this is. All right, that's enough talking about this 92 Sedan DeVille. Let's get on the road and see what it's like to drive this land yacht. All right, y'all, it is time to drive the 1992 Cadillac Sedan DeVille. We're gonna take the square key, stick it in our ignition, and fire this sucker up. And it fires up nicely too. 124,000 miles is all this thing has on it. And you got your big transmission selector right here. Auto locking doors when you put it in drive. All the technology, all the stuff that this car did offer, it still works 32 years later. So let's see what it's like to drive this boat of a car. And that was really a thing people talked about back in the day, was these things are boats, they're big. Pinky test, to steal that from a more famous YouTuber. I mean, the power steering in 92 was, I mean, it was good, and it still feels good. And there's nothing intimidating at all about driving this car. It's a long car, but that doesn't matter. It's still, it's fine. It's got this floaty suspension on it. Now, it's not the smoothest thing in the world. It is a Cadillac, not a Rolls Royce. That being said, though, it's still nice and floaty. It's comfortable. These seats are just, I mean, they're plush. They're comfortable. They're very nice. And these seats are definitely part of the suspension system, whether they actually are or not. These seats are definitely part of the suspension system in this car. But I love looking out over this long hood with that Cadillac hood ornament right in front of me. I mean, that is just a really cool experience. Now, let's see how fast this thing actually is. And we're just gonna do the old 1 Mississippi test. And let's hammer it. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7 Mississippi, 8 Mississippi, 9 Mississippi, 10 Mississippi, 11. That's 11 seconds to 60. 11 seconds. Did I mention it's not fast? And that's fine. For one, it's 92, so you have that expectation that you're not going to get 2024 luxury car speeds. And two, why does it need to be fast? This is not a race car. This is a luxury car to drive the family around in style, to take long road trips in comfort. You don't need speed. You just need to be able to pass cars on the highway and get up the entrance ramp. When I was a teenager, you couldn't have gotten me anywhere near this car. What is that old person car? Man, I don't want anything to do with that. But now that I'm in my 30s, you know, my love for cars has flourished. Now I can have a deeper appreciation for stuff like this. This really is a neat car, and it's got, I mean, 1992, there's a lot of great technology from the time in this thing. Your fuel gauge over here that tells you your fuel range right here in digital form. How many cars had that? Not very many, I guarantee you. Auto dimming mirror was still fairly young technology. Even ABS braking was still young technology. The power antenna, that's just so cool. You flip on your radio and that antenna comes up. I just love how easy this thing is to drive for a big car. Now, like I said, it doesn't have a whole lot of power, but it has enough. 4-speed transmission, obviously it's not a lot, but it's 1990. So there's your expectation. But still, give it a downshift and you'll pass a car, no problem. And it's just so comfortable. I mean, I could ride like this all day long, and I kind of want to. I want to test one other function right here, and that is the cruise control. Now, the cruise control is over here on your turn signal stalk, which was kind of a common thing for General Motors to do back in the day. And even now, I drive an Isuzu NPR box truck for work, which is pretty much mostly GM vehicle, and it's on the stalk too. But let me see if I can set this thing right now. So the switch is in the on position. I do believe the button on the end sets it. So let's push the button, and the cruise is set. And it says cruise down here in this lower information center. And it's cruising. Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. Now, oh, let me see here. Accelerate. Oh, there it goes. He's accelerating. It has an accelerate function. Okay. This car is 32 years old. A 32-year-old luxury car, and the cruise control still works. Okay. I'm liking this. Cornering. Cornering is not this thing's strong suit. You're going to get body roll. But it's not built for that. It's not a sports car. It's a luxury car. So who cares about body roll? It's not horrendous, but it's not going to stay planted flat on the road. Let's see, can I make it go faster? Can I make it go faster with just the switch? Oh yeah. Maybe I want to back it off. Oh nope, that just turns it off. So there's no deceleration function on that switch. It is just on or off, accelerate, and if you do have to hit the brakes, you can resume. Should a guy who is 34 be excited about a car like this? I don't know. I'll leave that up to you guys to judge. I like this thing. And just knowing that all the features on the car work, including this early cruise control system, $5,000. I wish I had $5,000 that I could just buy a car with right now. I would absolutely road trip this thing tomorrow with the condition that it's in. Now, it's not in perfect condition. It could use a little bit of refreshing. But with the condition that it's in, the way this thing runs, it runs and drives so smooth. I mean, that downshift, I'm going to slow down to 30. And then let's get a downshift. You can feel the downshift, but it's not harsh. I mean, it's an early 4-speed, so you're going to feel the downshift. But the point is, it just kind of, it's so nice. 124,000 miles and 32 years old. The transmission in this thing still feels great. And it's so comfortable to drive. I would not hesitate to load this thing up and drive to California. I bet you this thing will make it all the way there and back with no issues. Yeah, you might get a few early 90s old car issues, but the engine and transmission, oh, I think they'll do just fine. The vehicle that I filmed prior to this was a Ram TRX, a 702 horsepower off-road sport truck. And I am just as thrilled to drive this as I was to drive that. I don't know if it's the nostalgia of being from my period in time, the time that I was a little kid in, or if it's just the fact that it's this simple luxury. And that's the other thing about these cars, this simple luxury. When you think of a luxury car today, you're thinking of piano black trim. You're thinking of maybe some brushed aluminum, maybe some turned aluminum. You're thinking of aluminum speaker grills with Burmeister sound system behind them. You're thinking about big screens with all kinds of different features, massaging seats, heated seats, all that stuff. None of that is here. This is 80s, 90s luxury. Leather and wood and a nice suspension, a comfortable ride. This is what luxury meant back in the day. A land yacht that felt good to drive. Now, a luxury car is also sporty. Not that that is a bad thing. Today's luxury cars are nice and I like them, and I would definitely like to be able to drive more of them. But there's just something about this early 90s version of luxury car that hits differently. It's from a simpler time when we didn't have smartphones. You know, you stuck your favorite music cassette in the radio, you set the cruise control, and you just drove. Maybe you stopped at McDonald's and got you a burger along the way. If things break on a car like this, they're simple to fix. You don't have a screen that controls everything. Everything's on buttons and switches and dials. Actually, not very many levers in this particular vehicle. I like the modern luxury cars, but I also like this. This is really cool. If I could throw away $5,000 to buy another vehicle, I would probably buy this one and do to it the small things it needs to bring it back up cosmetically to where it needs to be. Because as far as I can tell, powertrain is flawless. Well, I guess I better go give it back. So there you have it, folks. That's the 1992, the second to last year of the 6th generation Cadillac Sedan DeVille. Like I said, this is a great car. Simple luxury. I really love this thing. And even 32 years later, even with its really minor cosmetic blemishes and 124,000 miles, this car is still an absolute joy to drive around in. Now, by absolute joy, I don't mean that it handles like a Corvette. This thing does not handle. It handles like a boat because that's what it is. It's a boat with tires on it. But still, what a magnificent driving experience. They don't make cars like this anymore. Modern luxury cars are still nice, but there's just something about this era of luxury cars. They were simple, they were comfortable, and reliable, obviously, because this thing is still going, this 4.9 fuel injected V8 front wheel drive. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this trip back in time to the early 90s as much as I enjoyed it. I mean, this was pretty cool to get to drive this nice luxury car from pretty much around the time I was born. This thing is great. And like I said, if I had $5,000 to throw down the drain on another car, I would probably buy this thing today. Anyways, guys, if you did enjoy this video, you know what to do. Make sure to go watch the rest of the videos on my channel. I got a lot more great reviews on there and a lot more to come. In fact, I'm kind of backlogged actually on stuff I need to edit. If you do like what you see there, make sure you subscribe to the channel, share the video with your friends, give them all a like if you want to, and follow me on Facebook and Instagram at That Car Vlog channel. These are all great ways for you to know when new videos go up on the channel. I'm trying harder and harder to get videos out on a more consistent basis, although it's not working right now at all. Anyways, done rambling. Once again, special thanks to the folks at West Chevrolet here in Alcoa, Tennessee for allowing me to use this Cadillac DeVille for today's review. Once you're done watching this video, do check them out at the link in the description below. These are great people with a great selection of cars, and I'm sure they'd appreciate your business. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.